Well, we are extremely proud to welcome one of our favorite guests and favorite human beings. Welcome back to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers, to the wonderful Richelle Frabotta.
Great to see you.
How are you, dear friend?
Oh, you know what? Thriving. That is exactly the word. We're going to make do. I have always said I have my team for the zombie apocalypse, and we're fine. We're doing okay. How are you, man? It's so good to see you. You guys look good.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Yes, we're feeling well. Dad's doing well, and
yes.
Yeah, I feel a little guilty every time I say this, but you know, when the new normal's crazy, it's good to be in the crazy business.
I'm saying, do we not have the skills to survive?
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
So we just touched upon some items in the news, sex in the news, and of course I had to include your posting from last week from the horrible treatment of Mr. Zimmerman at Archbishop Archer, is it?
Alter
Alter.
School. Your alma mater, is that right?
Indeed, 1985.
So, yeah, sorry about this hitting so close to home, but tell us your thoughts on this outrage.
Yeah, it's such a bummer. I mean, so let me give my cred first, right? So my mom was a sister of Notre Dame. Here she is on the Spanish Steps in Rome. She divorced Jesus, married my dad. Evidently, my dad was in seminary at some point, and to this day, I do not know why he was kicked out. I've got, between them, I have a strong, progressive Catholic upbringing. Both of them were very much into equity before the word meant what it does today. My mom was total about intersectionality, again, before the word today. And having said all that, I've got 14 years of Catholic education, and Alter was amazing. It was a great 4 years for building my brain. And it was a really nice way to also try to understand community, which is why this is so very painful, right? Because it's not about community. It's about a part of an identity, you know, big, huge, small, it doesn't matter. It's a part of Jim. It's a part of a ton of people, right? And, you know, he's certainly not the only gay teacher in Catholic schools. So, and it's really not about him. So it's about the idea of inclusion. It's about, you know, WWJD. I don't know. You know, I don't want to speak for him, but, you know, I'm pretty
everybody else does.
Well, right? This is why I'm humbled, right? I'm not going to make rules because, you know, the dude made rules. But the bottom line is it's a shame. He's got over 20 years teaching there. He's an alum. You know, there's a lot of gay people coming out of Alter and in different positions of whether they're students or staff, faculty, or alum. It sends a really negative message. Yeah. What do you guys think? I already know what you think. What do you think?
Right. Well, I mean, I would say that to me, the biggest shame in all of that is, you know, aside from the homophobia and aside from the just sort of nonsense mindset that's reflected in that, here was a teacher who was apparently very effective. You know, how many high school teachers are both popular with students and parents, who are really helping all these students do some really incredible work, are truly effective teachers, are making a difference. And because of the fact that he chooses to love somebody, he gets fired. We have an entire education system that now is meant to suffer because of that.
And as you pointed out in your post, the tragic message it sends to gay and lesbian and bisexual kids, that once again, they're invisible, or whatever ambitions they have for the future, they better expect at some point this could happen to them too.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, you know, and part of my upbringing, I don't know that it was the Catholic part or not. I'm pretty sure a lot comes from this ideology that was rooted in my faith. But the idea is, if you do everything right, you know, if you check this box and check this box, if you're a good person, and we're describing good people, or we're describing a good person, right? then things should work out for you. Now, we all know that's not reality, but here's the point. Jim is married. And so as a productive citizen of this community, and there are lots of communities checking the boxes, you know, this still sneaks up on him after 23 years. And you're right, you know, gosh, Ricky, the kiddos, we've been teaching sex ed a long time. And I remember in the 90s telling every gay kid, just come out, just come out. And then I started putting it together and I'm like, wow, wait, you know, you come out when you want to. Because this visibility thing is a double-edged sword.
Sure.
And I can't believe I'm saying that in 2020, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, we're going back to that place, you know, almost reverting back to that need for safety. Because for me, part of the danger with a situation like this, and part of the messaging that comes out, it's not just the message to gay and lesbian kids and trans kids and anybody that might be, you know, part of what we lump into sexual minorities.
Right.
For me, the bigger problem is the reinforcing message that it sends to heterosexual kids and everybody else, which again just reinforces the idea for them that these other people shouldn't be there.
Agreed. You know, so I just was awarded in October money from our county Alcohol, Drug Abuse, Mental Health Services Board to start a program called what I'm calling Visible and Resilient in Community and Self. So it's VNR for short. And what myself and I hired a fabulous teacher. Her name is Amanda. Just left a Dayton Public School job to come to this role. And our task is to, well, I mean, I'm just going to be casual with my talk. We're wrangling the gay kids, right? So everybody who's not identified in the majority, heterosexual or cisgendered, is the crew that we're looking for. And what we've done, especially since we've gone with physical distancing, we've taken our, what was a once monthly in the library meeting for LGBTQ plus youth, and we've made it an online weekly meeting. And let me just say, and I say meeting, it's a drop-in gathering, right? It's chill,
Sure.
But you know, you can't do this and not have two teachers not teaching, right? So we have a lesson plan every Tuesday, and we ask the kiddos, what do you guys want? Mental health is next week. Gay history was a couple of weeks ago. Sexual health and wellness came up. Yay.
Yes.
And you know what we talk about every time? We talk about violence and we talk about suicide. And by we, I don't mean the teachers. That's not in our lesson plan, but that's what we also end up talking about. And it's things like this exclusion clause in a contract that says, what do you mean hate the sin, love the sinner? That is such a mixed message, right?
Right.
And I'm so tired of kiddos thinking that dying is better than growing up. And we're quoting the same suicide rates for LGBTQ youth that we did 20 years ago.
That's right.
That's a problem, right?
And you remember before we had marriage equality, those absurd A through H federal guidelines for abstinence-only programs.
We're still teaching them in Ohio.
Quoting from the law,
places,
right? Programs must teach young people that sex in the context of marriage is the only expected standard for human sexual behavior.
Right.
It's still 25 years later.
But the caveat, the real caveat on that is their expectation of marriage is heterosexual.
Of course, that's what I said. Before marriage equity, any gay kid sitting in the classroom would think, well, they're clearly not talking to me.
Right.
I can't get married. So I guess either I'm going to be a virgin my whole life or just do whatever I want.
Right.
No safety message headed my way either because I'm not even acknowledged.
Exactly. Yeah, the outcome of these messages.
Negligent, that's harmful, it's abusive.
Well, sure. And I think this is where we really see that intersectionality, if you will, of social justice and sexual health by continuing. And I think marginalizing is too weak a word at this point because it's not just marginalizing. It's actually putting them in harm's way. It is complete exclusion. You know, marginalizing sounds kind of, you know, it's okay. You just stay out there by the margins. You know, it's not that bad. No, this is get the fuck out.
Right.
right?
I'm
And
thinking
it's a
about
very
these.
different message.
I'm thinking of these grown people complaining about 6 feet. Okay, my analogy here is a little weak, but right? We've got grown-ass adults who are choosing not to wear masks, who are thinking about their freedoms and having to stand 6 feet apart. Hello, you don't even know marginalized, right?
And having the audacity or sheer
God.
ignorance, we were talking about this last week, to walk around carrying signs saying "My body, my choice." Like, are you kidding me?
I mean, it's a special place in hell for those people.
What kind of irony is that?
Exactly. Well, and so again, kind of looping back around, because I mean, we could just sit and rip this for days because there's so much here. The hypocrisy is redonkulous, right? And I'm still dealing with dead kids. So not to bring the house down again, but how are we doing this, right? I mean, I know us as sexuality educators, we've been inclusive in our curriculum for a very long time. When someone in the 90s told me, make those teenage girls stop having babies, I was like, well, let me talk to the teenage boys too. Right. And let me throw in some parents here, right? So this idea of not targeting that person as the problem, but understanding community. So I also want to brag, not about me, but our Adamus board here also is invested in lesson plans that I'm writing that are inclusive. So, and again, you guys, this is a no-brainer for us, right? But in behavioral health, in classroom education, it's Susie and John. It's never Juan and Carlos, right? I mean, just to really throw in, Larry, this intersectionality, right? Mm-hmm. And so I should have them done at the end of June. And what we're going to do is Amanda and I in our VNR program are going to get those 6 lesson plans out there. Hopefully we can do it in schools. I'd love to go back to my alma mater.
Yeah.
And do a little sex ed. Wouldn't be a problem for me.
Brings me to another topic I wanted to bring up, and that is your textbook.
Oh, yeah.
Which honestly, we've both been at this a long time, going on 30 years or longer for you.
Yeah.
And of course, how many preview or faculty copies of how many sex ed texts we've received over the years. And honestly, I think I might have even said this to the class once or twice over the years. If you can't afford a new textbook, go on Amazon and just get a sex ed text. It doesn't really matter. They're all basically the same.
Agreed.
Until yours came along.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're so
sorry,
sweet.
I don't have the
wait.
co-authors' names in front of me, and we're going to put up a picture of the book.
Wait, I'm sorry. Don't get seasick. I'm actually, this is sort of embarrassing, I guess. I'm actually using one of my copies to put my laptop on.
There it is.
What do you do? It's the perfect size, right?
So again, multitasking, multi-use item. Get more for your money.
All kidding aside, I have never seen, and I'm not just blowing smoke either. I've never seen a textbook, especially for college students, a sexuality text that not only comes from this social justice angle, but forces students to think in ways way beyond just reading a chapter on STDs and memorizing and getting the quizzes right. I mean, this is a book that changes people. And I imagine the course that's taught along with it, this is the kind of workbook of, a living, breathing, certainly not dry and academic book on being a sexually healthy person and a sexually healthy contributor to maybe someday a sexually healthier society.
You're awesome. Thanks for saying that.
Tell us about what led you to not just write it, but write it from this angle.
Sure. So
you know how different you were being from every other text I've ever seen.
Well, and I having taught, I honestly haven't taught out of a textbook for probably a decade and a half. But the textbook I always had in my classroom was way back in the 90s when I started teaching in higher ed as a side gig, right? The only textbook was what is now the Yarber Book. Human Sexuality and Diversity in Contemporary America, something like that. Now, that was the only chapter that didn't have a separate one for gay. And that's why I chose it. So we talk about distinguishing between the sex ed texts, or the sex texts that are out there for higher ed. And so, and my co-authors are Fred Peterson and Jill Bly. Both are seasoned.
Jill.
Yeah, right? Great. And you guys know Fred too. I know you know them. Having said that, both of them are therapists and have different folks that they work with in their services. So between the three of us, we have a pretty huge breadth and depth of populations, experience with different ages, colors, orientations, experiences, right? So that's probably what you're picking up in the text, Ricky, is that we all have this kind of, I mean, you can read a book and then you can be in front of someone who's telling you stuff, and wow, I mean, what the difference is.
Sure.
So thanks for saying nice things. I think it's a great text. We're excited to revise it. We already know some changes we're going to make that I think for me will make me even more proud of it. But it is about inclusion. It is about, well, what we're talking about. It's despite the church doctrine that says we have to do this because this is our values say everybody deserves sexual health, wellness, pleasure, credible resources, right? Access. That's what our values are. So hopefully that came through loud and clear in the textbook as well. I know it comes through when the three of us teach. I know it comes through in our teaching. So that's really important.
It does. You know, and I think that's, you know, part of this idea. It's not just a book to read, you know, and I think this point of, you know, it changes people. You can't just read it. It really does make you I don't want to use the word reflect, but it's the only one in my mind right now. It kind of forces you to sort of challenge your own perspective, to really look at yourself and say, oh, wait a minute, what, really?
Right.
And isn't that quality sexuality ed?
Well, it should be, yeah. You know, I mean, I've learned a long time ago it used to actually piss me off, to be honest with you, how every little thing, if you present it in a certain way, is an aha for a lot of these people. It's like, why is this an aha? You know, why is this so earth-shattering? But it really speaks to what they're not coming in with. I mean, you have had the same experiences, I think, that we have from the standpoint of almost every college student that, you know, is going through the class sort of says the same kind of thing. How come we never got this before? How come this is the first time we're hearing about this?
We get this in high school.
You know? So, you know,
and they're pissed, aren't they?
There's a which?
They're mad. They're really mad. They're mad. And I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I want them pissed. I'm pissed. I mean, 28 years. I'm tired, you guys. And I mean, and I ain't giving up no time soon.
No.
I can't. But having said that, I mean, when are people gonna have, what's a people? When are people gonna have access to what is just basic information about being human, including communication skills, right? Including the idea of boundaries. And man, can we talk about power at some point in time? I'm still on this power kick.
You know, that's one of the underlying themes to what we do. That whole idea.
Which just all emerged organically. We never really intentionally set out what the goals and theme of our show is, but obviously, you know,
we have a perspective.
Talking about this stuff and emphasizing how these are men's issues.
That's
Everyone
right.
hears sexual and reproductive health and thinks Planned Parenthood and lady parts, and like men don't have a need for sexual and reproductive health.
And even again with that idea of power, you know, women should not be taking classes on sexual self-defense. Women should not be spending all of this time and energy learning how to protect themselves. Men need to learn to stop doing it. Yeah. That is where the issue lies.
Childhood.
And that's one of the most frustrating things that we have, that we continue. And, you know, for me, one of the most frightening aspects of it, not only are we continuing to perpetuate these sort of abuse of power type of issues, teaching men that, you know, power is kind of a limited thing. You know, that's the idea that so many of them have, which means the more power I need, the less I can allow you to have, rather than teaching people, especially men, that power is a generative thing. The more power I have, the more I can allow you to have, which allows me to have more, which allows you to have more. And we're now actually being able to grow together. And I think what we're doing is just reinforcing that the old scripts, that men are supposed to be in charge, men are supposed to be the assertive ones, men are supposed to be the ones to make the decisions. And you know, I don't think there are many things out there that bother me more than what I see as this backsliding. You know, you mentioned before that, you know, these numbers and the data, when we look at violence and we look at suicide rates among sexually marginalized people, you know, across the board, we can go just about any point on that sexual health continuum and see that we are running headfirst back into the 1950s. Right? In some cases, you know, we talk about going back to the 50s, it might even be the 1850s or the 1650s in some ways. Right? But we're not going in the right direction, it seems.
I'm hearing you. I understand. I don't disagree. And I'm still, and I know like you guys, and I know between the three of us, we could probably name 20 other outstanding professionals in our field who are going to be like, we ain't going back. I'm not going to do it. I'm tired of fighting, but at this point, that's been my way of life in many ways. So I'm still going to do me. And by that, I mean, I'm still going to provide these quality education services that do exactly what you were saying, Larry, as far as I'm not here to tell people what they're supposed to think, feel, and believe, right? Clearly, the Archbishop is doing that. That's the Archbishop's job, right? Yeah. My job is to say, okay, so you hear the Archbishop, you hear your mama, we just got done listening to this music, which made you feel a certain way. By the way, you guys, I have to send you my 20-year-old Spotify playlist. We had a sexy time playlist. I've got 137 students that gave me their top 3 sexy time songs. So I'm going to send them to you. So thank you. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I'm a little baffled, I won't lie. And I know you guys are music people too. So when you get it, let me get your feedback. Cause I'm kind of like,
really? I'm going to feel old.
Yeah. I mean, Stranglehold was not on there. Neither was Nagata Davida. So I was like, what? How are you having sex? So having said that, you know, our job, my job, the one that I'm going to continue to do despite these fools is be there, is have a presence, be authentic, and say, look, your way, and we're going to mind that power, right? Your way is the right way. Don't hurt people. Don't use that power for evil. But what can we do to keep you as healthy as possible? And of course, by we, I mean, you got to do the work, right? I'm just here kind of offering these ideas, pointing over to this resource, suggesting you spend time with this person who's really wise and will help you get your stuff in your head better. And I'm not going away. I'm not going to not do this work, right? So bring it, you unmasked 3 feet fools carrying guns. Bring it. I'm good with you. I will stay 6 feet away with my mask and give you what for. And you guys will too. I know.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I'll tell you, and this is my, you know, as social justice warriors, you know, in some ways, you know, I'm concerned that it goes in the way of HIV, where the people, you know, like us, that we are, you know, we're hitting it. We're hitting it hard. We're hitting it constantly. We're not giving up. But what happens after we're done? We burn out. We're not. What's behind us? We know there are a lot of young people coming into the field, but it really is a systemic thing.
Well, and so another point, and I'm all about focusing on folks with inequity, right? That's our conversation, right? But one of the things I started doing, this SOGIE, S-O-G-I-E, sexual orientation, gender identity expression. So one of the things I'm mindful of, and Larry, you brought up this point, and Ricky, I know we've had conversations in the past. It's like I'm focusing on LGBTQ plus youth because well, nobody else is, right? And I'm doing it for these reasons that make sense to all of us. And having said that, but what about the straight kid? You know, what about the cisgendered kid? And so what I started to do was make this VNR program, I'm calling it Shoji Inclusive, so that if we have allies and accomplices and advocates who aren't in the marginalized, but in the majority, and they want to hang out, you know what? Of course you can. We're not trying to co-create this conspiratorial space where only the gays have one idea. We're trying to say, look, we have a learning curve to make up for here because the community isn't providing this service for us. So we're going to do the service, and if we have accomplices, allies, advocates who want to hang with us, that's great. We're going to make that happen. So I don't know. That's not so 1950s, is it?
No, absolutely not.
Right? We're like the 60s, but you guys would know more about that than I would. Not much more, but more.
Still wannabes. I was 6 years old when Woodstock was going on.
Nice.
I wasn't one of those naked babies with the drumsticks on the. But
no, that was the 80s.
Yeah.
And it wasn't drumsticks.
Right.
We have to have you on the regular.
Yes,
you
indeed.
need to be an all-star, frequent guest, and we're just so thrilled. Sorry we won't be together at our annual family reunion sex therapy conference, but I'm so glad we have the technology that we can all stay.
Right.
Right.
And we have an extra year to work on our stuff for Tampa.
I know. I'm missing our time, Larry, with the presentation, but I won't get to hug you guys this year.
Sorry to interrupt. Larry and Richelle are doing the first ever supervision pre-conference session on educator supervision.
Right.
Always been a regular supervision session for sex therapists and counselors working towards certification, but never one for educators. And you two are leaders among a small but mighty group of sexuality educator supervisors.
I love that. That's so sweet. Well, and that's the answer, isn't it, Larry? Because someday I'm just going to be sitting on the beach with a cocktail and somebody's going to take up this work, right? And actually, I say somebody's gonna. There are several folks that I've been working with at Miami University who are phenomenal.
When
we're good.
Surprised each other at the National Sexuality Education Conference in Chicago. One of your paper co-authors is a young rising star, is she not?
Yes. I can't even begin to tell you. This is what we should do. We should do a show on like, so what, now what? And the now what are these phenoms. And, you know, I am constantly impressed because, well, here, let me make a silly thing here. You know, that playlist that my 20-year-olds made, the sexy time. So they get that, right? And so if we have this moment on how to teach what is good praxis, which of course is the stuff that we're talking about inclusion, and we've got pedagogy behind it, which is critical theory and all this stuff about equity. And our stuff is interdisciplinary, right? At this point, I think we're transdisciplinary. And then we add their contemporary lens to it, then, I mean, we got fire. So I do think someday we will get to retire.
That would be nice.
But it won't be anytime soon as long as those fools are standing in the way. So, because the folks who are coming up behind us that we're working with, that we're giving these decades of wisdom and experiences to, I'm going to stand in front of them so that, you know, those people who are used to, we can fight. And then meanwhile, they're sneaking in the back door, right? That's what I want. You guys are awesome. This is such a great moment.
You are more awesome.
Thank you so much.
No, you're awesome.
Awesomest.
Seriously, I will miss the hugs. I will miss the downtime with you. And I'm sure our presentation will be great when it happens. And gosh.
Tell us the book title once more. The new.
Oh, here it is. The Gender Revolution.
And
Excellent.
New Sexual Health.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for that.
One more kudos. Kudo, is that singular? A kudo?
A kudo?
Kudos on another, I think, real important contribution, though one of those like no-brainers, but until somebody thought of it, which you did, referring to this, I guess it's more a visual thing, but the sex hyphen sexual hyphen sexuality, right?
Right.
We've been saying you can't, part of the problem in talking about sexuality is you can't spell it without sex, and people veer right off.
Yeah.
So
Right.
this visual sexuality is a foundational contribution.
Thank you.
To kind of like the Plicid model to sex therapists.
Yeah.
It just clearly delineates what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a big field. There's lots of material in there. It ain't just about doing it. But we're not going to leave that out. We're going to talk about doing it. So
exactly. But that's part of that. Again, my punchline has always been sex and sexuality is not something we do. It's something we are. And you know, unless we make that shift, we're going to keep seeing all of the stuff that we're seeing, you know, focused on what people are doing. We don't like what they're doing. And it's all that try to stop what they're doing kind of thing, instead of let's embrace, because you had mentioned it at the very top, and it's, you know, it's the core of all of this stuff. It is one of the most integral part of being human.
it is. Right. Yeah, we got our work cut out for us. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of paths to go. So yeah, I think it's exciting work that we do, and again, maybe I didn't learn from my amazing Catholic education what a uterus was. I learned it was a womb. I didn't learn the word uterus, right? But what was lacking there, because of teachers in my life, probably like Jim, I got to get pointed in the right direction. Because of strong values, like my progressive mom, I got supported in looking for things, right? So at the very least, in our authenticity as folks who get around, you know, we'll keep putting up signposts. And the folks who can't get what they want in school or should have in school because those people won't let it happen, they're going to see us. They're going to see our signposts. They're going to see our students, and they're going to go, okay, I'm going to go this way. This will be okay. And sexual health, wellness, and pleasure will happen for them. This is my wish, right? This is what should happen.
Indeed.
Another brilliant acronym. So sex,
Yes.
bio, sexuality education, and consultation. Did I get that right?
Yeah, SOSECS.com. I'm a .com. Yeah, so sex.
Excellent.
Richelle Frabotta, sexuality educator and supervisor and trainer extraordinaire. And one of our favorite human beings.
Yes, indeed.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
We will
Love
meet
you
again soon.
Yes, indeed.
Love
you
you
too. Be well.
Talk to you soon.
Okay.